Hey everyone, it's Nikki and Jim, and we are keeping it real. How's it going today, Jim?
It's going great. I'm on my phone now because the power's out in my house, but it looks
It's
like it works.
At least it's a beautiful day, and it's not like freezing cold. Not the middle of the winter or anything. And
It's
we get
just
sunshine,
gorgeous
so
outside.
it really
Yeah.
is. So yeah, if you're thinking about moving to Washington State, we'd love to show you some pictures and check out our other one, which is Exploring Kitsap, because we're showing all over now. We'll be outside more, so it'll be more fun. Anyway, we're going to bring Carrie Selby, our special guest, on today, and she's going to go ahead and we're going to be talking about the selling process. But we're going to have Carrie go ahead and touch a little bit about what's happened with the rates lately. Hi, Carrie, by the way.
Hello. Enjoying a beautiful day here myself. The sun is kind of shining. I went outside without a jacket today. It was amazing.
It really is. We all live in that, especially this time of year. It's like, oh, we haven't seen the sun in months, and it's finally here.
Yeah, started off the day with my winter jacket, but didn't have to put it back on when I went out for a luncheon. So that was nice.
Beautiful.
So there was some shakeup happening in the market recently. There are a couple of banks that kind of created a domino effect, starting with Silicon Valley Bank. They started selling off shares to try to shore up their accounts for investors. They do a lot of payroll accounts, they deal with cryptocurrency, and in trying to raise funds, they put a lot of scare in the market. So FDIC came in, they took over. That led to another bank having to be rescued as well. So there's just been a lot of volatility in the banking industry, of course, which in turn affects interest rates. It really wasn't too bad though. And then just earlier today, Powell has been talking about where the economy is going. So definitely next week, I'll have a better update of where we're at and whether or not they're raising the federal interest rate. And we'll see how that affects mortgage-backed security, which also affects interest rates. That was a mouthful.
It was. So yeah, it was very interesting. I heard that is it Janet Yeller who's like, she gets to kind of pick and choose who she's helping right now? Like, what would I have heard that?
Yeah, when she went in front of Congress, she really didn't have a lot of answers for people, and she kind of gets to pick and choose who she wants to back and insure. So just for people that don't know, most deposits over $250,000 are not insured. That's kind of scary if you're a company that has a bankroll, a payroll. So she came in, and she was kind of picking and choosing who she gets, and she was being very vague in all of her answers in front too.
Yikes. Okay. Well, let's wait for next week and see what happens. It's kind of like a soap opera. I used to watch soap operas like when I was like a fun thing. What's happening this week?
Yeah.
Anyway, so last week we talked about, I'm going to go ahead and put you guys small here. And I know it's a small, it's a lot of information on a small screen, but we're just kind of doing the selling process. We did the buying process the whole last session, and now we're working on sellers, and we're taking it step by step. We're going to go super slow. So watch and pay attention if you're thinking about selling, or if you know somebody who's going to sell, that they may need some tidbits of information, and this will be a good series to watch. So anyway, last week we kind of gave an overview, and this week we're going to focus on when we first meet with the seller, and we're talking about realtors here, right, Jim?
That's right.
Okay. So what is our main point of conversation today?
Well, we're going to talk about, which I think is really, really important, to talk about the seller's goals. So if you're listening and you are a prospective seller, we want to talk about what your goals.
Wait, what? They got goals?
Yeah.
Why is that? I would think you'd want to go on just like how we're going to do, like throw it out there and do all this stuff with it. Really? It's our goals? That's what's most important?
Well, I think it's really important, because part of the process here, I mean, if you're selling, you may interview a number of realtors, and they'll come and and rightfully so, they'll tell you about how they're going to market the house, or how they're going to get the right price on the house, and do CMAs, competitive market analysis, so they make sure they do it right. They're going to tell you how successful they are. But really, the most important thing to start out with is, what really are your goals as a seller? What do you want to accomplish? Do you need to get out of the house quick? Are you wanting to repair things? Or so there's a lot of questions to ask that we really want to get to. We really want to hear your heart. Where are you, and what do you want to accomplish?
Right. So, I mean, I know when I sit down, it's kind of like, some of my first questions are like, where do you think you would price the house at? And it's not because I don't know the answer. I probably have already done all my research before I even walked in to talk to the person, right? To the seller. But I mean, at least I had some vague idea. I mean, I haven't seen that house, and I know I'm going to want to walk through and do a tour, and we're going to go into that a little bit too at the end here. But, we're going to want to see more specific stuff, like what makes this house unique, what's special about it, what needs to be fixed if something does. Or, is it going to be a lot of things or a little bit of things or whatever? So it's, that's part of what it is. But mainly it's really, what does the seller want, right?
Right.
So, Nikki, can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
When you go in for a consultation, how often are people really looking at places like Zillow to determine their home value? And what is the accuracy of it? I mean, it's a real question. People do that all the time.
It's a very good question. And, and it's funny because I will put Zillow and all the other, there's other sites out there too, and you put them all aside. And what I do is I go in, and we're going to go through the pricing thing and stuff. So I'm going to do it real quickly, but I go in and I do it myself. And then what I'll do is I'll go in and see where I'm falling compared to them, because you have someone who says, well, Zillow says it's, $100,000 more. And it's like, okay, but you know what? They haven't walked into your house yet. I just, that's part of my thing is I walk in your house, and you know what? Zillow might be right. It might be worth $100,000 more. I mean, I did that one time, for instance, when I was pricing this woman's house, I priced it all out and I was pretty confident in my price. And then I walked into her house, and her house was really pretty. I mean, it was nicely put together, nothing crazy special, just pretty average kind of, but very well kept up. And it was definitely the higher end of the price range, which I had the higher end. But then she took me outside in her backyard, and she had like a park in her backyard. I mean, she'd spent so much time and so many beautiful trees. And it was like, oh, no, we need to price it up here versus here. That's kind of a rare thing. I mean, it depends, but not always rare, but it happens. But, it's like sometimes I'm wrong when I walk in. It's like, I think it's going to be a certain dollar amount. And then something blows me away where it's like, oh, no, you absolutely could get this much more. Most often than not, though, it works the other direction where somebody says, Zillow says it's, 50,000. And I walk in and say, gosh, you know what? I'm out looking at houses every day, and, your house is always beautiful. It's very similar to this one right down the street. And, that one just sold at, $50,000 less. And unless you can show me the value, I usually be that much more. I just, I would, and we're going to talk about pricing more again, but there's some really bad things about when you overprice a home that can happen. And it's like really can mess up your whole marketing strategy. So we'll talk about that next week. But no, it's a good piece of information, getting a couple different sources. But your realtor who's going to walk in and actually view the home and not just kind of throw it into a machine and let it come out and this is your answer is probably going to be the best answer.
And I think Nikki too. I think people's expectation and the way that you asked, Carrie, too, about Zillow and some of those other ones, is it kind of sets the expectation of the seller. And they start thinking of their next step, which is important in the whole process. What are you trying to accomplish? Well, I want to get 150,000 out of this house. And when they've been looking at some of those Zillow or some of those other things, that's an important thing to go over, because we want to make sure you can do that next thing. And right. So the pricing of this home, or what you're going to be able to realize out of this home, is very important in the whole process. That's why we want to really go over some of those things to help you make that next step.
Right. So, we'll ask you, like, what do you think? And a lot of times buyers, or sellers, but a lot of times the sellers, they are coming pretty close though. It's like there's a lot more information than there used to be at both buyers and sellers' fingertips and stuff. So they're making more educated estimates, I guess, is what I'm saying. I still don't think it would compare with a professional, but they're pretty close. They're not bad, or usually not too far off. Sometimes you have to have those hard conversations. I know with clients saying, okay, let's, I know your goal is here, but let's look at what reality is. And that's where numbers come in, like the next visit and kind of stuff after we set the price, or after we are getting the price together, and then we work on setting the price. But we need to know what kind of expectations those are. What,
right.
what's the motivation? I mean, is your, like Jim was saying earlier, do you need to be gone in a month because, or 2 weeks, or, whatever, because that's also could affect it. I mean, if you price it too high at the end, it's going to sit there. If you price it right where it's supposed to be, chances are it's probably going to sell a lot faster. So knowing that motivation is huge.
Good.
Right.
Yeah.
And then some of the other things too. I mean, it's like when we do the walkthrough, like, so typically we'll sit down and we'll talk to the sellers for a few minutes and, get to know them a little bit, get to know their families a little bit. And, find out, like, okay, so that you want to move, in a month and a half, or 2 months, let's say. You're not really in a hurry. You've got a little bit of time, you just kind of seeing where things are at right now, where you're going to be priced at. And I'll be back in a week and give you that information, or a couple of days and give you that information. But there's also that time, besides time frame and price, it's also, well, what condition is the house? And that's where we do our tour of the house. And we kind of talked about that too, Jim, a couple of weeks ago, where we talked about, we have different hats on when we walk through different things. I mean, like, the seller's saying, okay, so when I sell my house, I want it this way. And they have their hat on that it's this way. When you have a buyer who's walking in, they're thinking, oh, I love this. I love this. I don't like this. I don't like this. You have a home inspector comes and says, oh, I see a problem here. I see a problem here. And we're not home inspectors or appraisers either. I mean, appraisers is another one. They have all these different hats that kind of come through and look at these houses. And so our job is kind of to walk through here, although we're not like licensed to do those jobs. And I would never want to take on that responsibility to do that job. But there are some things that we see over and over and over again, where it's like, okay, so I walked around and I saw the earthquake straps are not. So that's probably going to get called an appraiser. So I would suggest to do this. So we walk through and kind of things, or peeling paint. Oh, that's a VA thing, right, Carrie?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
so,
absolutely.
If you're not having any VA buyers, you're fine. But if you choose to have a VA buyer come in, and you're going to lose a lot of market if you don't. So you might want to consider painting the house. So then let's sit down and let's kind of talk about what some of the seller's plans are as far as what they want to do. Right, Jim?
Yeah, I think we talked about this the other night too, just in preparation for this. And again, in terms of what the seller really wants to do, there may be a seller that just says, I got to get out of here. I don't want to do repairs, or I don't want to do. And there's other ones that say, well, what can I do? What would help me get the most out of the house? There might be those people. And if they have the time and money, they might want to do some, either repairs or, I mean, if they're a long-term seller, like, they want to sell in 6 months, they might have time to do, redo the kitchen. And we're going to cover some of that too in later episodes of what gives you the most bang for the buck, which I think is kind of interesting,
Yeah, because there are ways that you can market it, definitely, even as like a rehab loan. And we're going to definitely touch on something like that if you want to sell as is and you need to get out of it, there's ways that you can market it for people to come in and be able to put their own personal touch on the home that they're moving into.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Yeah. Great.
And then there's short-term things you can do too. I mean, it could be things as simple as, or maybe the house is in pretty good condition overall and you've got a little bit of time and it's just like you're going to do a couple smaller things, maybe not just fixing an earthquake strap, but maybe, like, hey, I'm going to, replace the flooring in here, or I want to have the front yard fixed up or whatever, because all those things can add value. You have to kind of understand what those different things of value are, but they do add value. Or even just, do I want professional photos versus just like, does it have to be, or drones, or do I want, and it's all marketing and how you're going to do that. But we're going to go into a lot of that stuff here later on too. But even those are more of like short-term goals, kind of like, just getting the house ready and stuff like that. We may talk about that a little bit. Like, I've got a couple months, I want to do this, or I don't have any time, I want to do that. Or, we've got a little bit of time to work with, but how is it going to be, what's going to be the best way to present this house? So it kind of depends on the goals again. And that's where we have this great talk with the seller. And I've always said, you know what? I'm just here to make sure everything goes the right way and to give the best advice I can. it's not my decision. It's the seller's decision, or it's the buyer's decision on what they want to do. So,
Right.
So, Carrie, what happens? I know Jim had talked about this earlier before we jumped on today. He also was talking a little bit about like doing a reverse mortgage. Like, what happens like if they're really, I mean, like Jim mentioned, maybe it's an elderly person or something who's been in their home for a long time, and they're thinking, oh, I really don't know if I can keep up with this. What could be another option for them?
Well, amazingly enough, you can do a reverse mortgage purchase, which is called a HECM purchase. And it just really helps for people to right size their homes. People that are dealing with 2,400 square feet, but it's just them. And they live in a 2-story and the primary suite is on the second floor and they're having a hard time getting up and down those stairs. They need to move to a rambler. A lot of people don't understand that they could sell their home and use the equity to purchase a home with deferred payments till death, which is a game changer for so many people, because so many homes out there, people are cash poor but equity rich, and they don't know what to do with that equity. So that's one way to put their money to work for them. And that's another thing that really cool. Address.
It doesn't have the same bad rap. I know like a couple of years ago, it kind of had a bad route, but I mean, it sounds like it's really, I mean, they've made some changes to it. It seems like it, where it's really more, I mean, you can do more things with it. It's very helpful. You don't lose the money necessarily. Like, it doesn't just go away when, the person dies or anything. I mean, they actually have it as that they can will to their kids, right? Or something if they want to.
The heirs can inherit the equity from the home still. And the difference is it used to be privatized. The federal government came in and said, this is predatory. You are taking homes away from perhaps a widower who the husband was the only person on the loan. And then the husband passed away, and so the widow was left with no home. So the government came in, and now it's an FHA insured loan. So I would love to have another call, because we could just use one entire conversation with just what the benefits of those reverse mortgages could be. But it's just a hope for people that feel like they're stuck, but there really are solutions.
I make I make
notes. That's a great solution, because basically then they're moving, they're downsizing or whatever, and they don't have a mortgage.
Exactly. And you know what? It's really helping to infuse the real estate business as well, because they're freeing up these large homes where families could purchase, and they can right size into a home. They could even purchase in a 55 plus community. There's no restraints on that. And so it really helps to keep the whole real estate industry infused and moving forward.
That's awesome.
I think if you're watching this, and maybe you have your mom or you have somebody, or maybe it's you, and you want to downsize. I just met this morning, I had coffee with 7 guys I kind of grew up. They're more my older brother. They're all in their 70s, much older than me.
Much.
And anyway, it was a great time meeting with them, but all of them were talking about how they're enjoying their Rambler, their single-story home. They had all downsized, but there's a huge population of our country that is downsizing, and they want the single-story. But this is one of the great programs that they can do that and downsize with no mortgage, and take the equity out of their home and use it for the purchase.
Absolutely.
So recapping then, so mainly you should have your broker should be talking to the seller about what their goals are. I mean, really what's motivating them to put their house or think about putting their house on the market to begin with. I mean, is it, do they want to right size their home and make, are they moving up? Maybe they moving to a different or smaller house, a bigger house? Are they moving out of the area? Do they have time? Do they not have time? So there's all kinds of things that, that they can do. How much money do they have to do repairs? If it's not a lot, then there's some programs like Carrie mentioned, as far as doing like a rehab type loan. So again, you have to have a good team. We talked about that in our buyer series. You have to have a good team, and every broker I know has a lender who's like their right hand person. They call it. Carrie's in the mind. I'm always calling her, going, Carrie, what can I do to help my seller here? What can I do to help my buyer here? Because you deal with it all the time. And you know what? And that's how we work, and we make things so we get the goals made, right?
Exactly. It's so important to have the right team. And there's been deals that I'm not even helping you on, but you feel comfortable calling me because you know you're going to get a straight answer from me.
Yep.
And information is power. It's important to know what choices are. If your seller's home isn't moving, you reached out to me the other day. Hey, can you put together a 2-1 buy down scenario for me so I can present it to my seller instead of lowering the cost of their home? Can they give a credit? So, you know, you were talking about sometimes people want to overprice their homes when they put it on the market. There's even solutions for that. So it's great to have the knowledge on how you can proceed and get the most bang for your buck.
So I think that's about it, unless you guys have anything else to add.
Nope.
No, I think some of the things coming up will be like one of those issues would be the possibility of a pre-sale inspection, you know, which could kind of alert them to things they may need to do and be ahead of the ball game. But we can cover that later.
That might not be a good idea as well, though.
Yeah.
Pros and cons.
Always a pros and cons to everything.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk to stagers. We're going to talk to photographers.
There you go.
We're going to be talking to a landscaper, to our title people, because title gets involved earlier now as far as, you know, getting things on the market, and they pull title on it. So we're going to pull title rep in. So yeah, we're going to have a lot of really good, fun conversations, I think, this time.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Sure.
All right, everyone. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you so much for joining us again today. We so appreciate your insights. Thank you for joining us on Keeping It Real, Jim and Nikki. And we will see you next Wednesday at 1:30. And don't forget to hit the like or the follow button or the subscribe button, because that's how you won't miss an episode. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.